As we told you at the top of the hour, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined ICE agents for an immigration raid in the streets of New York this morning. At least 4 people connected to criminal activity were taken into custody. But the new Trump administration is moving beyond those entering the country illegally or accused of crimes. Earlier, we spoke with New Mexico Democratic Congressman Gabe Vasquez about that. And we should also note we spoke to him prior to a federal judge temporarily halting the president's funding freeze. Congressman, thank you for joining us. I wanted to start with your reaction to the sight of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in the streets of New York today and the general openness that the Trump administration has had with these ongoing ICE, DEA, and other federal agency missions to root out and arrest immigrants across the country.
Well, I think it's a very haphazard approach to an issue that I think many Americans agree that we need to deal with. But when we talk about rooting out some of the violent criminals that are on our streets, it really has to be a targeted and a strategic approach. And the resources from our federal law enforcement agencies that are tasked with carrying out this task that I've talked to would agree with this. There needs to be time to be able to vet who some of these violent criminals are, be able to apprehend them, and keep folks out of the crossfire. And so what I'm seeing from this scattershot approach from this administration is that they're more interested in this reality TV game of mass deportation rather than actually coming through with a strategic plan to root out some of the criminals that are on our streets.
When you say targeted and strategic approach, you mean find those that may have committed crimes or are national security risks. Don't grab people who may just be here in an undocumented way?
That's exactly right. And look, I represent a border district, and we are used to working with Customs and Border Protection, with Border Patrol and ICE. And we know what these targeted operations look like here in New Mexico, especially when you're going after violent criminals, members of cartels, human traffickers. The truth is that these investigations take quite a bit of time, and they have to be done and carried out in a way that doesn't put American citizens in the crossfire. For example, from what we've seen here at the Mescalero Apache Reservation on the Navajo Nation, this doesn't seem to have really rhyme or reason. And I expect better from this administration to carry out on their promises to do what they said they're going to do.
You're saying you know of American citizens who've been arrested by ICE or other agencies as part of these raids?
Well, they've been detained and questioned by ICE. And what that does is simply it causes fear and confusion in communities. It makes communities less safe. In my district, we have a deep history of immigration and immigrant labor. And so being able to tell who is a violent criminal and who isn't really comes down to profiling. And when we are looking at these non-targeted enforcement activities, American citizens are already being caught up in these lines of questioning and these very unstrategic operations. And I think we're going to expect to see more of that based on this very unorganized approach to what's happening.
What do you make of the administration's attempts to restrict legal immigration, including from those who may be coming from countries fleeing violence?
Well, look, that's a conversation that I believe we need to have collectively with members of Congress. We've been working on all kinds of different immigration-related legislation, including my 2 bills, the Stop Fentanyl at the Border Act and the Humane Accountability Act, which were both bipartisan and which I hope will get a hearing in Congress. That's really important that the proposals that have been put forth, including the Senate Republican proposal before Trump took office, that actually had a chance at passing Congress when it comes to comprehensive immigration changes in this country. We really need to look at those opportunities for us to work together, and that this is not a unilateral approach. Look, one of the reasons I'm here in Congress is to represent my district, and that includes both farm workers and farmers. That includes small business owners. That includes dreamers. That includes the folks who are putting food on our table every day across this country. And so we need to have a conversation about how we do this legislatively, and Republicans and Democrats need to work together, and I'm prepared to do that, both to pass my bills and work on every aspect of how immigration can actually help support and bolster our economy and keep violent criminals out.
As if that wasn't causing enough confusion and concern across the country, there is also this memo the president issued that is tying up what the Trump administration says is at least $3 trillion in federal spending. It's caused a lot of confusion today about whether certain federal aid is going to reach people. What has been the incoming to your office from constituents who are hearing about this and maybe concerned whether money will be there for them?
It's complete chaos. Right now on the ground, we are getting calls from seniors asking about, their benefits. Will they receive them on time? I just visited a youth enrichment project here in Zuni Pueblo, one of the farthest reaches of my district, who are about to lose 67% of their federal funding, that are in danger of letting go 7 people who actually help support young people. And we're getting questions from parents about their ability to feed their kids, or even if their after school programs are still going to be in operation. This has caused nothing but chaos. The administration, again, did not take or do their due diligence in this executive order. And that is, I believe, maladministration on the part of this Trump administration.
So that quickly today, you were hearing from parents and from nonprofits in your district saying, we're confused about this and we're concerned. That's incredible. Look, host of things he's done in the last week or so, fulfilling pledges to really disrupt the way the federal government runs, the way Washington operates. How is your party, the Democratic Party, supposed to be responding to this? There were press conferences, for example, today in Washington scheduled to talk about the pardons of the January 6th defendants that turned into more urgent conversations about what we were just discussing, that budget memo that tied up all this funding. I mean, things are moving so fast, it's got to be really difficult for your party to respond to this. How should they?
Well, look, I think this is part of the administration's strategy, is to bombard us with executive actions.
Sure. So then what's your party's strategy to respond to it all?
Well, look, I can speak for my district, and the way that we're responding to it is, one, taking calls from constituents in our districts who are concerned with some of these changes, whether it's immigration law or the impoundment of federal funds that we saw today that help serve seniors and veterans and young people, access to food assistance. Democrats should be focused on their districts and what they can do to respond to these executive orders. Now, at the larger level, look, we need leadership. We need to be able to push back on this administration in a forceful and an aggressive way, especially as we see that these unilateral actions by the president are having real impacts for families, and they're not making our quality of life any better. So we need strong leadership, and we need strong messaging out of the Democratic Party.
Well, who do you think then is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
Well, look, I can't comment on that. That's probably above my pay grade. What I can tell you is that the Democratic caucus is united in trying to find solutions, both to respond to the executive actions that the administration has taken. But look, we're in week 2 of this administration. This is going to be a marathon of things that we have to respond to. And I believe one of the things that the American people should know is that we are truly interested in the health and well-being of all Americans, that we want to make sure we're fixing roads and fixing bridges, that we are helping reduce the cost of medications for seniors, that we are preserving Social Security, and that we're stopping some of these tyrannical actions from this administration. I think that needs to be the message, and I think the party needs to carry that into their home districts more than anything.
Well, as the marathon continues, hopefully you'll come back to talk to us, whether here in Washington or there in your district. I know it's a district work week, so we appreciate you taking some time. Congressman Gabe Vasquez of the great state of New Mexico, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.